So welcome back to my channel. It's Sarah, and I'm back with another monthly reading wrap up, this time for February. And I'm really excited to bring you some of the books all the books that I read in February. And of course, my thoughts and opinions about said books. This was an interesting story. I did read a lot of new releases. Let me just check. These aren't all new releases, but I did read two books from an author. This is the first time I read any of her books. So kind of give you a little bit of insight into that. So let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so the first book that I read in February was Through the Glen by Samantha Young. This is book 3 in the Highlands series. This book released February 1st. So this story follows Theo and Sarah. Now, we've met both Theo and Sarah in previous books. Pretty sure they showed up in books 1 and 2, but don't quote me on that. For sure, they were featured in book 2. Now, in this book, the setup is that Sarah has been working as a maid at the Ardnock estate, and she on the side has been writing and publishing a series, like a crime series, that she's now successful enough that she's able to quit the estate. And so it's her last day at the estate, and she has an interaction with Theo when she actually approaches Theo for his help. See, Theo is a screenwriter. He's very successful, and he does direct. I think he's directed television. And Sarah is approaching Theo for help in adapting one of her novels for television. And so she approaches him, but he's already kind of seen her around as the maid and thinks that she's just like coming on to him. So he's very dismissive of her. And, he thinks that she's kind of mousy, but in their kind of first interaction in this book, she shows that she has a backbone, so that he is intrigued by her. So, I'm not sure why, but okay, let's just back it up a little. So, Sarah has quit the estate. She's rented a cabin, I think kind of north of where the estate is, or on the coast. And she's holed herself up and she wants to write. She's going to focus on writing. I'm pretty sure she's trying to write the screenplay on her own. And for whatever reason, I can't recall why, but Theo goes to find her at the estate. And when he does, she has fallen ill. So he takes it upon himself to nurse her back to health. And then they get to talking, and he agrees to help her write the screenplay. And so they spend a bunch of time, like several weeks together in this cabin writing and interacting and getting to know one another. So that's kind of that lays the foundation for them kind of interacting, even though she's no longer at the estate, and he wouldn't really probably pay attention to her if she were working at the estate anyway. So Sarah is a local girl. She's grown up in the Scottish Highlands. Theo is the son of, I think he's the son of a viscount. I think that's right. Some landed title in England. They have a country estate it's like south of London, southeast of London, I think. I can't recall it specifically, but Theo has really eschewed this, like the life of, being a viscount's son and kind of the title. And I think he's a second son, so he doesn't have a ton of responsibilities anyway, but whatever he would have, like whatever duties he would have to perform, he's like, no, thank you. So anyway, that is kind of his background. And like I said, he's a successful screenwriter in Hollywood and has done some directing. So he's kind of got some cachet. So they really fall for one another while they're in the cabin together, kind of despite the odds. Like, she knows his reputation. She's quite innocent. She knows he's not. So she has to kind of not overlook, but just kind of really confront any concern that she would have given his reputation in his past. and they work through that. So I did really like these characters. This is my favorite of the series so far. I liked her. I thought she had a pair. She had a pair. She was a backbone. So she was interesting to read. He was more kind of, Theo was kind of more nuanced and interesting than you could get with somebody who's just like, oh, I don't want to be a royal. So I thought they were both like pretty interesting characters, and I did really believe their connection to one another. So I really like this one. This is 4-star for me. That's Through the Glen by Samantha Young. And then moving on to Vicious Seduction by Jill Ramsower. This is book 4 in the Byrne Brothers series. This released February 8th, 2024. This is Oren and Lena's story. So this is a fork. This is a forced fake engagement mafia story. So, okay, so Oren meets Lena in a membership club, like a gentleman's club, but not like that, like a private membership club where people live like very old wealth in New York. He's a new member, and she is her mother and stepfather are members, but she's accompanying another member whose name is. So Lena is accompanying a member named Lawrence Wellington, who we met in the previous like 3 books. I think he's been in as the kind of villain in 3, the last at least 2, like books 2 and 3 of the Byrne Brothers series. And so she's accompanying him as his dinner date to the Olympus Club. So she's been dating him for a month, and she's trying to kind of get information out of him. She believes he is linked to her missing sister. So her sister is missing, and she believes that Lawrence Wellington is linked somehow. Meanwhile, Oren is trying to get information on Lawrence Wellington, kind of trap him, because he knows that he has been involved in some really bad stuff, and is kind of trying to trap him. So Lawrence Wellington is this like big shipping magnate, and Oren believes that he's involved in human trafficking, as does Lena. So they both kind of have the same goal, but they don't know that. But they like start to interact with each other at this Olympus Club, with Lawrence being both of their targets. So pretty quickly, Oren decides that one of the ways that he's going to take Lawrence down is to take his woman. So he believes Lena is his woman. Meanwhile, Lena has no intention of being his woman other than to extract information out of him. So Oren blackmails Lena, saying, "Hey, you need to be my fake fiance." And she ends up agreeing to it, and then their relationship unfolds from there. So this was a really interesting read. I did like this one better than the previous Byrne Brothers book 3. I thought Oren and Lena's chemistry was pretty palpable. I liked Lena's character and Oren as well. And I liked the way that they were kind of characterized and their relationship described. So I thought it was very interesting. I thought the drama was cool. It was a wrap up of the series. So this is the last book in the series. I liked it. I enjoyed it. So it's 4 stars. It was full stop. So go read it. Okay. So next I read When She Falls by Gabrielle Sands. This is book 3 in the Fallen series. And this story follows Cassio Sorrentino and Gemma Garsoldo. So this story is book 3, and I did not read books 1 or 2. And I have no intention of reading books 1 or 2, so I'm going to do my best to kind of summarize the setup. Yeah, so that it is clear. Okay, so this When She Falls follows Cassio Sorrentino, who is the underboss to a Camorra outfit leader named Damiano de Rossi, who is marrying the heroine in this book's sister, Valentina. So Gemma Garsolo is the heroine in book 3, When She Falls. So Gemma Garsolo and comes to Ibiza, where the wedding will be taking place, and she is kind of reintroduced to Cassio Sorrentino, and they have a little bit of a history from back in New York. So it's technically enemies to lovers. She really hates him, and he seems to kind of derive a lot of pleasure. And I'm talking about Cassio here. He seems to derive pleasure out of kind of teasing her and getting her riled up. Now, the story about Gemma is that she is the second of 3 daughters to her father and mother. Her father is very abusive. He's very emotionally and mentally and abusive with all the girls, but he's physically abusive with Gemma. He kind of does it in secret, in that he makes sure nobody else really knows. I think their mother knows, but if he's mad, he takes it out on her, and she's kind of resigned herself to take the hits literally for everybody. So this story really unfolds with Cassio needing to take care or watch over Gemma while they're in New York. So the wedding happens. Damiano de Rossi, Garsolo, Mr. Garsolo, I don't remember his name, but Gemma's dad, and then the boss to which Gemma is betrothed or engaged, Raffaele Misero, they all come to Ibiza, not only for the wedding, but to kind of talk about a business deal that they want to enter into. So Cassio's boss that says, hey, it's a good idea to go to New York, check out the operations for this Garsolo dude, kind of see if it's on the up and up, see if this is actually a good business arrangement we should enter into. So Cassio goes, stays at the Garsolo house, and then is eventually tasked to kind of watch over Gemma, and they fall in love while that happens. So, this was a good mafia story. Was this a revolutionary, very different, unique mafia story? No, it was not. No, it was not. It's not like everything I've ever read, because they're not all the same. There's definitely enough differences. But for me, this was a 3.5 star story for nothing really in particular, other than it's just not super original. And I did get kind of annoyed with the heroine at some point. So that's that. And then I read book 4, When She Loves. This is book 4 in the Fallen series. This is the last book. Is this the last book in the series? I'm pretty sure. It's the last one out right now. When She Loves. So this story follows Raffaele and Cleo. So Cleo is Gemma's younger sister. Valentina and Gemma's younger sister. Now, if you'll remember from what I just described about When She Falls, Raffaele, our hero in When She Loves, was engaged to Gemma. Now, Gemma has fallen in love with Cassio, so she's worked it out with Raffaele for them to not get married, and Cleo agrees to take over Gemma's place as Raffaele's wife. And she's 19. So this is a bit of an age gap. And Cleo is a wild child. Cleo is definitely does what she wants. She definitely does not appreciate being kind of in a cage or in, really bound by a bunch of the rules of her mafia life. And willingly steps forward to marry Raffaele, but is still just really trying to set her boundaries any way that she can. So their relationship is the story about their relationship really is just them living together, them kind of interacting, her pushing back, him really trying to open her up, because we see in book 3, When She Falls, Raffaele is always really taken with Cleo. So he's actually really excited to marry Cleo, whereas he was like ambivalent to marrying Gemma. So he is just like giving into his attraction to Cleo. I don't think he's right. I don't think he's 30. So it's probably a 10-year age gap. I don't think it's much more than that. But Raffaele's parents, like their relationship was not good. And so he has definitely closed himself off to love. And so being with Cleo, despite his attraction to her, is really, really challenging, kind of the way that he thinks about marriage and love, and ultimately has to really kind of come to grips with that. Yes, he really loves Cleo, and how does she deserve to be treated? So this does feature groveling. I don't think it's that great. I don't think it's that like emotional or heartwarming. Like, oh, the groveling is fine, you know. So for me, this is a 4-star read. I did really like it. It's not great. I mean, I thought it was better than When She Falls, book 3, but he's definitely obsessed. But overall, it's not going to live rent free in my head, right? Like I did really like it. So that's When She Loves in book 4 in the Fallen series by Gabrielle Sands. All right. So then I read I Wish I Would Have Chosen You by Whitney G. Now I read I Wish I Would Have Told You kind of in the fall last year, or whenever it came out. I'd never read anything by Whitney G before. It just was recommended to me in my Kindle Unlimited feed. And I just saw that it says, go into this blind, but if you need a blurb, here it is. And then I kind of skimmed the blurb a little bit. And I was like, all right, the book told me to go in blind. So I did. And it was great. So great. And it wasn't very long. It was like under 300 pages. So this is another kind of installment in that series. There's 2 books, and they both start with I Wish I Would Have. And this one is I Wish I Would Have Chosen You. And so again, the author's like, go in blind, but if you need a blurb, here it is. And so this is a teacher-student story. Definitely forbidden. So Genevieve and Liam are our characters. Genevieve is a student at Phillips Exeter Academy. She's a senior. Liam is a new teacher there. There's it's about a 20-year age gap for this story, which is one of the bigger age gaps that I've read recently. Now they are in class together. She is a very, very talented writer. She's had her stories and articles published in some collegiate journals. Even though she's a high school student, she does write with a pseudonym. He is a lover of literature, so he's teaching literature at this prep school. Now, he immediately is like super attracted to her and does what he can to stay away from her, but they just kind of can't stop. So they resist, and then they do end up having interest. So I don't actually want to say much more because it's really, really great. The thing about Whitney G's these 2 stories that I read from her is that her writing is so entertaining. It's so entertaining. The characters' thoughts are hilarious. Like she could write for television so well, and it would be so interesting to watch the story. Like they're so interesting and funny. I was definitely laughing. It was definitely emotional. So this is not a 5-star read for me, but it's like 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. So I feel like I've given away more than I really would have loved to. But anyway, I Wish I Would Have Chosen You is definitely a book that I highly recommend. Okay, so then I read 1111 by Micalea Smeltzer. This has been released. I think it was released in January or something. I don't know. But this is a reverse age gap story. This follows Via, who's 33, and Reed, who is 22. So Via is newly divorced, and so she moves from San Francisco to a small town in Maine, and she buys a business. It's like a storefront that has an apartment in it, and she buys it sight unseen. She drives her U-Haul across country, and shows up and is like, it's not as bad as it could have been. Okay. So she just like completely starts over. And she needs this storefront renovated. And so she gets a contractor to come in. Her sister comes to visit. Her sister lives in Los Angeles. And so her sister comes for a visit. The sister is like, oh, that contractor is really hot. And he's 11 years older than Via. So he's 44 and something like that. Via is early 30s and the contractor is 11 years older than her. And Reed, our hero in the story, is 11 years younger than she is. So I think he's 21 actually. So I think Reed is 21, Via is 32, and then the contractor is 43. So she ends up going out on this date with this contractor. But let's go back to a little bit earlier in the story. She had ended up kind of on her first couple of nights in town, going to a neighboring town and going to a bar and seeing Reed across the bar. It's his 21st birthday. That's what it is. It's his 21st birthday. And she sees him and he sees her and he comes up to her and is like, oh, hey, how are you doing? I'm Reed. And she's like, God, this kid is young. Oh my gosh. But they start talking and she ends up going home with him and gets his name, obviously, but really no way to contact him. And then, is like, I don't do this. It's not something I don't want to try to like start anything with you. I'm just getting through a divorce and I'm new in town. I just want to kind of get my life together. Even though he's really taken with her, she's taken with him, but she's just like, this is weird. This isn't anything. There's no way to start a relationship, right? So she goes back to her house, no way to contact him. And then like she meets this contractor and he starts helping her with the storefront. And then they're going to do the apartment that she lives in as well. La, la, la. Her sister comes to visit and sister's like, oh, hey, that contractor's really hot. You should go out with them. Kind of pushes her into a date with the contractor. And turns out the contractor is Reed's dad. So that's super awkward for Via. She's already a little bit of an awkward person. I think she's really just kind of trying to shed a lot of the remnants of her marriage, that she's like coming to realize all the different ways that her husband was like controlling and an asshole and narcissistic. And she's like really trying to figure out who she is because she's always really loved art, but she was a lawyer by trade. So she's just like really trying to be like a fresh start. So this story unfolds from there. Now, this story for me was really interesting. So Via to me was a little bit annoying, but maybe it's just because I'm a Capricorn and I just don't understand why people that have like wishy-washy. I'm like, oh, just figure out what you want to do and go do it. But anyway, I did have some grace for her as I was like, oh yeah, she's really trying new stuff. And she was a lawyer. Now she wants to teach art. And so she's got all this self-doubt, which makes total sense. And 11-year age got younger is really nothing to shake a stick at. But they just kind of really can't stay away from each other. But the thing that I really liked about the story was the way that Reed's character developed. So he read as mature young, but like young, and like the thoughts process. I'm like, oh yeah, this is a 21-year-old. Okay. But mature 21-year-old and really, really likes Via and is like very clear about what he wants. And so that was really cool to read. Cause typically, younger guys are, I don't know, sometimes you're like, I don't know, my 21-year-olds that would act like this. Like, this is like a 40-year-old in a 21-year-old's body, right? Like, this was not that. Like, there definitely was some immaturity that he had to deal with, but it wasn't really anything to do with his desire for Via. So I like this book. This, for me, is a 4-star read. I liked it, didn't love it. It's not going to live rent-free, but definitely recommend it. So. Okay, then I read Stand and Defend by Sloane St. James. This is book 4 in the Lakes Hockey series. So I told you guys I would be reading this as part of my hockey total. So I'm going to do a number of hockey books remaining. You guys, I can't even describe to you how many hockey books get recommended to me. It's nuts. It's nuts. I'm sticking to my guns though. I have to be like, I can't, I don't know how, I got to change the algorithm somehow. Cause I'm like, dude, can I get some football books, please? Anyway. So this Stand to Defend follows Camden and Jordana. So Jordana is Camden's best friend's fiance. So the book opens with Camden, who goes by Teller in the previous three books, because his last name is Banks. He comes from money, so they're like, "Oh, you're like a bank teller," ha ha. So they call him Teller. Oh no, his last name is Teller, but he goes by Banks. Excuse me. So Camden Teller, he goes by Banks. So Banksy, not the street artist, but Banksy, and Jordana. So Banksy goes to Jordana's. I don't remember her fiance's name. Not a big of a deal. He's a douchebag. Whatever. Goes to their kind of engagement party, which is in a vacation home north of Minneapolis that Camden and his friend spent a bunch of time growing up in. They all, Jordana's fiance, and Camden all come from wealthy families in Minnesota. So they all kind of like are in the same kind of sphere growing up. So they can kind of relate to each other that way. So Jordana is engaged to this guy. Let's call him Eric. It sounds good. Anybody know an Eric out there? Like, they're nice. They're typically nice, but let's just say he's kind of douchey in this story. I could look it up. I'm not gonna. So turns out this guy is a real douchebag, and he is a little he's a little physically abusive. Not a little. He's physically abusive with her like one time, to the point where she breaks up with him. She's like, "Okay, you've been controlling up to a point. I'm done. I'm not going to marry you. This is crazy." So then she has to find a place to live, because she lives with this ex-fiance and works at the ex-fiance's family's place of business. So stuff starts to happen where like accounts get frozen, she gets fired and loses like access to the car. And so all the ex-fiance is really ruining her life as punishment for breaking up with them. And so she actually runs into Banksy at a cafe. They both really enjoy, start to interact. I think he gets her number, and then he ends up sheltering her. Like, he brings her to stay in his guest house because there's security. She doesn't go into a ton of detail about what the ex-fiance did that was so like DV. It honestly isn't. It's terrible. So with all of these books, you want to check trigger warnings. It isn't super violent. So if you have get triggered by DV, this I think maybe depends, right? But I was like, oh, but it wasn't shocking. I wasn't like skimming just to get through it. It was on page, but it wasn't. And I don't. This is gonna sound bad, but like I said, it's not really graphic. It's not super violent, but it was just like the straw that broke the camel's back for her. So she flees. Now, Banksy's got a history with DV with his mother and his father. So he has a charity that helps, runs a halfway house. It's not a halfway house. It's like it's a house, a home to shelter women who are victims of domestic violence. So he knows kind of what to do, protocols of how to help Jordana kind of, extricate herself from the ex-fiance. So this book is another great installation in the Lakes Hockey series. I really enjoyed this book. This is a 4.5 star book for me. It's really steamy. Banksy's really swoony. I liked her. She's supposed to be in like her villain era, which was like kind of funny for the stuff that she was doing in terms of to get back at the fiance. Man, girl, I would have been way more vicious. She wasn't like super vicious, but it was just like what got her through, right? So I really enjoyed this story. So like I said, 4.5 stars, definitely recommend. So then I read The Pucking Wrong Date by C.R. Jane. Okay, you guys, again, I told you in my 2024 reading goals that I would be reading this story. So Don't come for me. Okay. So again, I'm going to do kind of a tally of how many books I have left of my 12 max hockey books for 2024. I think I'm down to like 8. Okay. So this released February 23rd. This follows Olivia and Walker. And the story is, so Walker is the I think it's the Galaxy, the LA hockey team's goalie. And Olivia is a pop star, and she is a pop star who's been 2 years under a conservatorship. And some of that, like that stuff was tough to read in terms of like the way her mom and manager were controlling her. And just the way she was just so beaten down from being in the conservatorship because they really just wanted her money. And I was like, it's Brittany. But she definitely had like a diminished mindset about herself as a result of being in this conservatorship for 2 years. But so anyway, so Olivia sneaks out one day to a hockey game because her cousin plays for the Seattle hockey team. And so Seattle's playing Los Angeles. So she goes, she wears a Seattle jersey, I think she was wearing a wig and a disguise because was a formerly extremely popular pop star. So she didn't want to get recognized because she actually sneaked out. So she didn't want to be she didn't want her mom and her manager to find out. Turns out manager's abusive, mom's abusive. So she just like does what she can to avoid being abused by these people. Anyway, so she's within Walker's line of sight in the rink where he can see her from his position in front of the net. She catches his attention and he is like distracted, has to like force himself to be focused on the game because he's like, oh, who is this woman? I got to get to know her. And then proceeds to get her number, find out who she is. And despite all the ways that she's trying to stay hidden, like learns of her identity and then starts to show up where she is. So if you've read any of the other Pucking Wrong books, this is Pucking Wrong. Like, this is not the kind of behavior that we in real life want our men to exhibit, but reading it was amazing. This book is amazing. I love this story. 5 stars. I loved it. Walker and Ari and Lincoln from the previous 2 books have like a bromance that's hilarious. It's hilarious to read their text exchanges. The lengths that he goes to, Walker, are bonkers, just bonkers. Like, again, you would not be turned on by this in real life, but you're reading it and you're like, oh, hilarious. Just great. So I highly recommend The Pucking Wrong Date by C.R. Jane. And then finally, I read Irresistibly Dangerous by J. Saman. This is book 5. And what is the series for this book? Irresistibly Yours, I think. Let's check. Let's go to my library. What is the series name? Irresistibly Yours. That's right. Irresistibly Yours, book 5. Okay. So guys, I read book 3 and 5 from this series. Okay. Let's try that again. Here's still wet. Okay. So guys, I read books 3 and 5 out of the series, and that's it. And I actually think there's a previous series that if I had read that, some of the kind of interpersonal dynamics of the characters in the series would have made more sense. But I didn't. So here we are. So let's talk about Irresistibly Dangerous. This story follows Georgia and Lennox. Lennox is a former member of a band that all of the guys in this series were members of. I can't remember the name of the band. Doesn't matter. And Georgia is the cousin of 2 of the band members. So Central Station, Central Station, doesn't matter. Central something. That's the name of the band. So anyway, so they broke up. One of the guys is now a solo artist. Lennox is a tattoo artist. He's also a hacker of sorts, white hat. Has a crap ton of money. We don't know how. It isn't revealed how he has a bunch of money, but he lives in Maine. But he has a place in Boston. And so Georgia is at his house in Boston, comes to him, and she's like, I need you to marry me. Lays out kind of why. So her father had recently died in a plane crash, like the plane exploded, and she is inheriting the company, like the corporation that he was the CEO of, or the kind of owner, if you will, and all his shares. And they don't know how he died, the father, but it did stipulate in the will that she needed to be married. And she had been dating the son of the COO of her, or CEO. I can't remember. I can't recall if he's a CEO. Yeah, the father's best friend is a CEO. The Georgia's fiance is a COO. So they both have high, like C-level positions at this corporation. Georgia had been dating him, but broke up with him. She's like, I don't want to marry this guy. And so she comes to Lennox and she's like, I know you'll help me. I need to be married. Let's be married for a year. This is fake. But it is enemies to lovers because 6 years previously, they had a 2-year tryst when Georgia was in college. Georgia has finished her master's degree now, so she's like in her late 20s. And Lennox, I think, is in his early 30s. So a little bit of an age gap, but nothing terrible. But they had a 2-year relationship where it was like largely physical because Lennox was dealing with the death of his twin sister. And he would really use Georgia for comfort. And so she caught feelings. She told him she loved him. He broke it off and didn't see her for 6 years. She was really pissed at him. And so when she comes and makes this proposal, he is really hesitant to do it because he actually loves her, but is just really closed down to the idea of love, really, I think, still mourning his sister. And he apparently feels like he had something to do with his father's death. I don't know, kind of convoluted, but he goes to Georgia's cousin, his friend from the band, and is like, Georgia asked me to do this. And the cousins are like, dude, if you do this, you have to be really careful. It can't be physical. You guys have to just have it be a name only. Well, he's like, oh, this is going to be hard. So whatever, he agrees to do it. They go to Vegas because there's a shareholder meeting, and then they get married there. And then they just kind of can't stay away from each other. So pretty quickly it turns physical, and Lennox has some guilt because he feels like he lied to his friends. So the story unfolds from there. And the story really is about them kind of resolving their background, like kind of what went down with them. And Lennox really opening himself up to being loved by Georgia, who he sees as perfect, as the most amazing woman. He really feels like he doesn't deserve her. So it's just his arc to really accept her love. And then we do get some resolution for the suspense. And I thought that aspect was interesting. I thought some of the details were a little like, okay, but what are you going to do? It's fine. Wasn't anything super incredible, but it wasn't terrible. So for me, this is a 3-star read. I read the reviews. I was really excited. This got something like 4.6 stars on Kindle total, which is great. And I don't agree. I don't agree. I didn't love the story, and I didn't really get all the swooning. They just seem to kind of go at it. It's like they just kind of can't stay away from each other. So you just kind of have to like believe that they love each other like already. And there's definitely things that he does that demonstrate his love for her. I just wasn't really sure that it was reciprocated. So anyway, I didn't love it. 3 stars. That's it. All right, everybody. That's it for my reads for February. Overall, pretty good book. Really liked the hockey books. I'm just laughing at myself. Like the hockey reads. And then some pretty cool mafia reads with a new to me author. So check out my next month, my March wrap up when it's released. I've posted on Instagram my March reads. So if you do not follow me, A Little Savage, A Little Sweet on Instagram, that's where you can go check out my post for what I'll be reading in March. You can also check out my March TBR video that I posted. Some really cool looking new releases that I'm excited for March. So as always, thanks so much for being here, and click like, click subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye.